He didn't even let me speak. That's the thing that haunts me the most. The moment my boss looked at me with cold eyes, barely giving me a chance to explain, and then simply pointed toward the door, like I was nothing more than a problem he wanted gone. No warning, no questions, just the silent order to leave. I had worked there for 5 years, 5 years of late nights, extra shifts, training new employees, and doing whatever it took to keep things running smoothly. I gave everything to that job. Every ounce of energy I had, I poured into that company because I believed in it, because I needed it. I was a single mother trying to build a life for my son, and that job was more than a paycheck, it was hope. But in that cold moment standing in front of my boss, I realized none of that mattered. He didn't care about my hard work. He didn't care about the times I stayed late to cover for others. He didn't even care to hear why I was late that day. He just fired me. I was stunned, humiliated, heartbroken. I wanted to tell him everything. The fear I felt rushing my son to the hospital, the calls I made trying to explain, the endless nights I sacrificed for that company. But he shut me down. And that silence, that injustice has never left me. I wasn't just an employee. That's how I always saw myself, more than just a worker punching a clock. I was a single mother doing everything I could to give my son a better life. Every day was a balancing act, making sure he had what he needed while trying to keep my job secure. I had been with the company for 5 years. 5 years of showing up early, staying late, covering shifts when others called out, and helping new hires find their way. I never once complained, even when the work got tough or the hours were long. I believed that if I gave my best, it would be noticed, that the company would see me as more than just a name on the roster. My boss, Mr. Langston, was a strict man. He expected perfection and didn't tolerate mistakes lightly, but I respected him. For years he was fair. If you worked hard and showed dedication, he gave you that respect back. I trusted him. But everything changed after the big corporate shakeup. New managers came in, and the atmosphere shifted. The pressure increased. People started losing their jobs left and right. Mr. Langston wasn't the same man I knew. He became colder, sharper, less willing to listen. I admit I had been late a few times in the last couple of months, but none of those times were without reason. Life wasn't easy for me. There were doctor's appointments, school emergencies, and sometimes my son was sick. I always tried to call ahead, leave messages or send emails to explain. I thought that would be enough. I thought they would understand. I wasn't perfect. I never claimed to be. But I worked hard day in and day out. I gave my all even when it felt like no one was watching. I wasn't just an employee. I was a mother, a fighter, and someone who deserved to be heard. That day, everything fell apart. It started like any other morning, but then my worst nightmare happened. My son had a seizure. One moment he was playing quietly, and the next his body shook uncontrollably. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I had to get him to the hospital fast. I grabbed the phone with trembling hands and called 911. While waiting for the ambulance, I tried to stay calm for him, but inside I was falling apart. I knew I would be late for work that day. I had no choice. Before rushing out the door, I called the HR department at my job. I left a voicemail, my voice shaking as I explained what happened and told them I'd be late. I hoped someone would listen. I hoped they would understand. When I finally got to the office, hours later than usual, my heart was pounding, not just from the rush, but from fear. I wasn't sure how Mr. Langston would react, and there he was, standing just outside the break room, arms crossed, a cold look in his eyes. I barely got a word out. "Sir, I'm so sorry, I had to rush my son to the emergency room. I called earlier to let." He cut me off before I could finish. "I don't want to hear it," he said sharply. "You're late again, and that's unacceptable." Before I could say anything else, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is your termination letter," he said flatly, handing it to me like it was a cold piece of garbage. My hands trembled as I took it. I looked around. Coworkers stared in silence, some avoiding my eyes, others whispering behind their hands. I felt exposed, humiliated. He didn't say another word. Without another glance, he turned and walked away. I was frozen, my throat closed up, and tears burned behind my eyes. I wanted to scream, to beg, to explain everything, but the words caught in my chest. I stood there, in front of everyone, feeling small and defeated. The weight of those 5 years of hard work crumbled into that one moment of cruelty. No one came to comfort me, no one stood up for me. I was just the employee who was late, and now I was fired. I walked out of the office that day, feeling like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. The letter in my hand felt heavier than any weight I'd ever carried. Jobless. Broken. That's what I was now. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent this month, or how I would buy my son's medication, which he needed every day without fail. Bills piled up like a mountain I couldn't climb, and all I could think was, how did it come to this? My son looked at me with worried eyes. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked softly. I tried to smile, to be strong for him, but as soon as I closed the door behind me, the dam broke. I sat on the floor, clutching his small hands, and the tears I had held back all day finally spilled out. I cried for the lost job, for the uncertainty, for the fear of what tomorrow might bring. I cried for the unfairness of it all. No one returned my calls. It was like I had vanished, erased without a trace. The silence was deafening. I was drowning in a sea of questions with no answers. How could one moment erase everything I had worked for? The years of dedication, the sacrifices, the love I poured into that job, it all felt meaningless now. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what I had done wrong, wondering if anyone would ever care enough to hear my side of the story, wondering how I was going to keep going. But through the fear and the sadness, a tiny spark of hope refused to die. Because I knew, deep down, I wasn't just a number on a paper. I was more than a mistake or a late arrival. I was a mother fighting for her son's future, and I wasn't ready to give up yet. The next morning, I was still trying to hold myself together when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first. When I answered, a calm voice on the other end said, "Hi, my name is Mark. I'm a journalist with the local news station. I've been following reports about unfair firings at your company." I felt my heart skip a beat. How did he find me? Was this real? He told me he wanted to hear my story, wanted to know what really happened from my perspective. For a moment I hesitated. Sharing my pain with strangers? Opening myself up to the whole world? It scared me. But something inside me said maybe this was the chance I'd been waiting for. Maybe someone would finally listen, so I agreed. Mark came by my small apartment the next day. He was kind and respectful, never pushing too hard. He asked about my life, my son, and what it had been like working at the company. I told him about the long hours, the sacrifices, and the moment that broke me, the firing without a chance to explain. We talked about how the company had changed, how the new management seemed to forget that behind every employee was a person with struggles and stories. They filmed me sharing my experience, my voice shaking but honest. I spoke about the coldness I felt from Mr. Langston, about the voicemail I left explaining my son's emergency that day, about how I never imagined that one difficult moment could erase 5 years of loyalty. Mark said they wanted to highlight the toxic culture spreading through the company, a place where people like me were being treated like numbers, not humans. After the filming, I didn't expect much, maybe a small segment, a fleeting mention, but I just hoped that someone, somewhere, would hear my story and understand. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my voice mattered. That night, I sat quietly in my small living room, my son asleep in the next room as I waited for the news to come on. My heart raced with a mix of hope and nervousness. Would anyone really care? Would my story make a difference? When the segment finally started, my face was blurred to protect my privacy, but my voice, my real trembling voice, came through loud and clear. I spoke about the emergency with my son, the voicemail I left, and how my boss fired me without listening. I talked about the years I had given to the company, and how it felt to be thrown away like I was nothing. As I listened, I felt a strange mix of vulnerability and relief. For the first time, my story was out there, not just in my head, but in front of the world. Then something unexpected happened. My phone began to buzz non-stop. Messages poured in from strangers, from former coworkers, from people who said they had faced similar treatment. They told me I was brave, that they believed me, and that they were sorry this happened. Some even said they were thinking of speaking up too. It felt like a lifeline. What I didn't know was that Mr. Langston was watching too. Later, I heard from someone who still worked at the company that he had been glued to the screen that night. His expression changed as he heard every word I said. The pain, the truth, the injustice. His cold mask slipped for a moment, replaced by something heavier, regret. He had no idea that what he thought was just a late employee was actually a mother fighting to save her son's life. That night, I didn't just share my story. I shattered the silence. And someone who once held all the power was forced to face it. What happened that night didn't just change my life, it changed his too. Later, I learned that Mr. Langston was at home when the news segment aired. He wasn't at work, wasn't preparing to face the day. He was just an ordinary man sitting in his living room, about to watch the evening news like anyone else. The moment my voice came through the speakers, he recognized it immediately. His hands trembled as he listened. Every word I said, the seizure, the frantic call to HR, the voicemail he never bothered to check, hit him like a punch to the gut. The years I had dedicated to the company, the sacrifices I made, all ignored, all dismissed. He saw himself clearly for the first time, not as a strong, decisive boss, but as a man who had shut down a woman in her moment of crisis. Someone who had made a mistake so big it haunted him in the quiet of his own home. His wife, sitting beside him, turned and asked quietly, "Isn't that the girl you just fired?" But I imagine that question echoed in his mind long after the broadcast ended. I don't know if he cried, but I know his pride cracked. I know he felt the weight of what he'd done. And that's something I never expected, that the person who hurt me the most would be forced to face his own truth because of my story. The next morning, my phone rang. It was a number I recognized, the company. My heart skipped a beat. Was this really happening? They offered me my job back. Not just that, they apologized, said they wanted to make things right. And then, to my surprise, Mr. Langston himself asked to meet with me in person. I was nervous but agreed. I needed to hear what he had to say. When we met, he was different. Gone was the cold, unyielding boss I remembered. Instead, he looked shaken, like the weight of the news segment had finally broken through his defenses. He spoke carefully, almost hesitantly. "I was wrong," he said. "I should have listened. I should have known what you were going through. You didn't deserve what happened." I wanted to believe him, to forgive, but something inside me held firm. I looked him in the eye and said, "You didn't need to hear my voice to know who I was. 5 years of work, loyalty, sacrifice. You chose to ignore all of it. I deserve better than being thrown away like that," I continued, my voice steady. "I'm not coming back." I stood up, feeling a strength I hadn't felt in a long time. As I walked out, I held my head high. I wasn't the broken woman he had tried to dismiss. I was someone who knew her worth. Sometimes apologies come too late, and some doors once closed don't open again. Looking back, I realized something important. No one has the right to reduce you to a mistake or silence your voice. Dignity isn't just about how others treat you, it's about how you see yourself, even when the world tries to tear you down. After all that happened, I found a new job, a place where I'm not just a number, but a person who matters, where my hard work is seen and my struggles are understood. It wasn't easy to get there, but it was worth every step. And as for Mr. Langston, I don't know what he's thinking now, but I like to believe that every time he turns on the news and hears my voice, he remembers. He remembers the story he tried to silence, the woman he thought was replaceable. Some scars stay with you, deep and lasting, but sometimes the ones who hurt you have to live with those scars too. And maybe, just maybe, that's a kind of justice. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters just as much as hers did. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one, stories that remind us all of the strength it takes to be heard. And please share this video with someone who needs a reminder that their voice matters, no matter the challenges they face.